The streets thought King Von's murder was the end of the story. But what if I told you it was just the beginning? Von's death wasn't just another headline. It was a carefully crafted setup that shook the rap world to its core. Behind the flashing cameras and courtroom drama, whispers started spreading about a bigger plot. A plot that didn't stop with Von. And now, his own sister is the one living in fear. She stood in court, brave enough to call out names, hint at who really pulled the strings, and expose the snakes that everyone else was too scared to mention. But the price of speaking out? A chilling warning that sent shockwaves through her circle. Your brother was first, now it's your turn. Imagine losing your brother in a cold-blooded murder, then walking out of the courthouse only to be told you're next. Who would be bold enough to send that message? And why now? With Lil Durk locked up, are his people moving pieces on the outside, making sure no one else dares to speak? Or is this an even darker conspiracy no one saw coming? And before we go deeper into this shocking mess, you already know, nobody covers the truth, the lies, and the scandals like Spillover. So do yourself a favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications, because when the next bombshell drops, you'll want to hear it here first. Stay tuned, because this isn't just about Von's murder, this is about survival. The murder of King Von wasn't just a tragedy, it was a storm that rewrote the blueprint of Chicago drill history. When the gunshots echoed that night in Atlanta, the world didn't just lose another rapper, it witnessed the opening act of a saga that refuses to die. The internet exploded with theories, blogs typed faster than bullets, and fans demanded justice. But behind the chaos was something far more sinister, a plot so tangled that even Von's own sister now admits she warned him, begged him, cried out for him to cut ties with certain people before it was too late. But Von, being Von, believed loyalty was stronger than betrayal. And that loyalty? It might have been the very thing that put him in the grave. You see, Von's murder wasn't just about a street beef gone wrong. Oh no, that's the story the headlines wanted you to swallow. What really happened? A collision of money, power, jealousy, and the kind of double-crossing you only see in mob movies. And here's the kicker, Von wasn't supposed to walk out of that night alive. From the position of the shooters to the way the cameras conveniently malfunctioned around certain angles, it all screamed setup. This wasn't chaos. This was choreography. And in the middle of it all, Lil Durk. His name has been attached to Von like a shadow from the very start. The so-called brotherhood between them had fans fooled for years, but if you look close enough, the cracks were already showing. People whispered about jealousy. Others hinted at business moves gone sour. But Von's sister? She wasn't whispering. She was shouting. She claimed she saw the danger building brick by brick, that she told Von to distance himself, that she warned him of the snakes in his own camp. But here's the tragic irony, Von laughed it off. He thought she was paranoid. He thought family always worried too much. And maybe that's true, but sometimes paranoia is just the truth knocking early. The night Von died, it wasn't just bullets in the street. It was betrayal in plain sight. And when his sister walked into that courtroom months later, her face said it all. You could see the pain, the exhaustion, the rage of someone who lost a brother but gained a target on her back. She didn't just sit there quietly, either. She dropped hints. She let it be known that Von's murder was bigger than a simple altercation. She pointed toward people pulling strings behind the curtain, people too powerful to name outright, but too dirty to ignore. And that's when things shifted. Because after you name the snakes, they don't slither away. They strike. As she walked out of the courthouse, sources say a chilling moment unfolded. No cameras, no microphones, just whispers in the wind and one terrifying message. Your brother was first. Now it's your turn. Imagine that. You lose your brother to a murder everyone claims was random. You risk your own safety to testify and hint at the truth. And the reward? A death threat delivered right outside the halls of justice. That's not coincidence. That's control. That's intimidation. Now here's where it gets darker. Lil Durk might be sitting behind bars, but don't think for a second that prison walls mean silence. If anything, some say his voice travels further inside than it ever did on the outside. And if Durk couldn't move, guess who could? His family. Rumors started swirling that it wasn't Durk himself, but his brother or even his sister stepping up, making sure Von's sister knew her place. The streets talk, and when the streets talk, you better listen. They say threats came not just through whispers but through alleged messages, shady encounters, and even anonymous phone calls. Too specific to ignore. Too bold to dismiss. And here's the sick part. People online laughed it off. Oh, she's just being dramatic. Ain't nobody coming for her. But those same people were the first ones reposting Vaughn's death the night it happened, crying RIP with crocodile tears. Isn't that the way it always works? First, they say you're paranoid. Then, they call you a victim. And then once you're gone, they post you for likes. Vaughn's sister isn't playing that game. She knows the threat is real because she's already lived through it once. She saw her brother gunned down. She saw how fast loyalty turned into betrayal. She knows exactly how ruthless the game gets when money and reputation are on the line. And now she has to live every single day knowing that by speaking up, she might have painted a target on her own back. The scary part? Nobody's protecting her. There's no bodyguard team following her around, no witness protection program stepping in, no police promising safety. Why? Because when rap and street politics collide, law enforcement likes to step back and let the streets handle their own business. And you know what that means? It means silence. It means nobody's coming to save her. But here's where it gets even more shocking. Some sources claim that this isn't just about silencing Vaughn's sister. It's about erasing the Vaughn legacy entirely. Think about it. If his sister disappears, so does the one person still brave enough to keep his name alive in the fight for justice. Vaughn's music? They can spin it. His friends? They can fold. But his sister? She's blood. She's not going anywhere. Unless someone makes her. So now, we're left with the chilling possibility that Vaughn's murder wasn't just about Vaughn. It was the opening act in a much bigger play. A play where anyone connected to him, anyone who dares to speak, becomes the next target. And if that's true, then this isn't just about Chicago drill beef. This is about silencing truth-tellers. This is about making sure nobody gets to pull back the curtain and reveal who's really been calling the shots. And the fans? They're caught in the middle, addicted to the drama like it's their favorite show. They watch every twist, every leak, every post like it's entertainment. But this isn't a Netflix series. This is real life. Real blood. Real families. Real bodies. Vaughn's sister isn't a character. She's a survivor who knows the story isn't over. And maybe that's what terrifies the people behind the curtain the most. Because once someone like her starts talking, the lies start crumbling. And if she's telling the truth, then the same people who orchestrated Vaughn's death might be desperate enough to silence her next. But the question is, will she be silenced? Or will she finally expose the full plot behind Vaughn's murder before it's too late? Buckle up, because this is where the nightmare turns into a full-blown horror story. King Vaughn's sister wasn't just warned, she was stalked. Think about that. You leave a courthouse after speaking your truth, and instead of relief, you feel eyes on you. Phones buzzing with unknown numbers. DMs from faceless accounts. And then, the words nobody wants to hear, "You're next." At first, people thought she was exaggerating. That maybe grief was making her see shadows that weren't there. But then, the so-called receipts started showing up. Screenshots allegedly leaked of Instagram DMs from burner accounts tied to people with suspicious links. No name drops, no obvious threats, but enough to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Messages like, "Stop speaking or we'll stop you." And the one that really set the internet on fire, "Vaughn's story ends with you." Creepy? Terrifying? Absolutely. Coincidence? Not a chance. And here's the dirty secret the industry never wants to admit. Intimidation is the oldest tool in the book. It doesn't matter if you're a witness, a rival, or even family. Once you become a liability, you get handled. And Vaughn's sister? She became the ultimate liability the second she opened her mouth in that courtroom. She wasn't just exposing a murder, she was pulling the curtain on the puppet masters who thought they'd buried the truth with Vaughn. Now here's where Lil Durk's name slithers back into the picture. Sure, he's locked up. But tell me, since when has prison ever stopped the game? We've seen it with mafia bosses, cartel leaders, and yes, even rappers before him. Some say Durk's influence outside is stronger now than ever, that his family, his crew, his affiliates are moving like chess pieces to protect him and silence anybody who dares link his name to Vaughn's blood. And guess who's standing at the center of it all? Vaughn's sister, a woman they probably thought would grieve quietly, but instead, she's calling their bluff. The whispers on social media didn't help either. Blogs ran with unconfirmed rumors that Dirk's own brother had stepped in, allegedly making moves on the outside. Some even dragged his sister into it, saying she was keeping the family business alive, making sure no one dared drag their name down with conspiracy talk. It's the kind of gossip you'd laugh at if it didn't fit the pattern so perfectly. Too neat to ignore. Too messy to be fake. And while all this was unfolding, fans online turned the entire situation into a circus. Some tweeted memes like "Vaughn's sister better start ducking." Others made TikToks syncing her testimony with Vaughn's lyrics, as if a murder and death threats were nothing more than trending content. The internet has a sick way of turning trauma into entertainment, and in this case, it only amplified the paranoia. Because if the streets already want you gone, and the internet is laughing at your pain, where exactly do you run? Who's left to protect you? Meanwhile, Vaughn's sister didn't stay silent. She doubled down. She went live on Instagram, her voice shaking but steady enough to send a message back. "Y'all think I'm scared? I ain't going nowhere. My brother ain't die for me to shut up." Brave words, sure, but bravery doesn't stop bullets. And bravery doesn't erase the fact that every time she steps out, she has to look over her shoulder. The most shocking twist? Some so-called insiders claim the threats weren't just about silencing her, they were about silencing her forever. Alleged audio clips began circulating, low quality, distorted, but chilling nonetheless. A male voice, supposedly linked to someone in Dirk's circle, muttering lines like, "We handled Vaughn, we can handle her too." Authentic? Who knows? But the timing was too perfect, arriving just as the story started losing steam online, pulling everyone's attention right back in. Almost like someone wanted the fear to stay alive. And that raises the scariest possibility of them all. What if these threats aren't just rogue actors or angry trolls? What if they're part of the same machinery that orchestrated Vaughn's murder in the first place? A machinery that doesn't just kill people but kills narratives, kills truth, kills anybody who dares to step out of line. Because let's be real, Vaughn's death wasn't just about ending his life. It was about controlling a story. And his sister is the last obstacle standing in the way of that control. Fans are torn. Half believe her, half call her a clout chaser. But isn't that exactly how smear campaigns work? Discredit the messenger so nobody listens to the message. And yet, every time she speaks, the internet listens, even if it's just to argue. And every time she shares a detail, the puzzle pieces get harder to ignore. The shooters, the cameras, the silence from people who once called themselves family. None of it adds up unless you assume it was never supposed to. Now the million-dollar question: how far will this go? If they already took Vaughn, if they already threatened his sister, what's next? Does she vanish from the public eye, silenced forever? Does she push harder, risking her life to expose everything? Or does the industry itself step in, quietly burying the story under new scandals, new distractions, new headlines? Because one thing's clear, if she's right, if she really does know who planned Vaughn's murder, then keeping her alive is dangerous for the wrong people. And maybe that's why the threats feel so heavy. They're not just personal. They're strategic. If you erase her, you erase the last living piece of Vaughn's story that can't be bought or spun. You erase the one person who still dares to say the names nobody else will. And if that happens, then Vaughn's murder really does stay an unsolved mystery. Another cold case the streets remember but the system forgets. So here we are. Vaughn's sister caught in the crossfire of truth and survival. Lil Durk's name lurking like a ghost. His family accused of keeping the fire burning. And the streets buzzing louder than ever. The question is no longer, who killed Vaughn? It's who's trying to kill the story. Because let's be real, the guns may have fired in Atlanta that night, but the plot? The plot is still alive, still breathing, still hunting its next victim. And if the warning is real, then Vaughn's sister isn't just a witness anymore. She's the next chapter. The courtroom threats were just the beginning. What came after felt like the ghost of King Vaughn himself haunting every step his sister took. Imagine stepping outside your own home and noticing unfamiliar cars parked too long on your street. Imagine your phone buzzing at 3 a.m. with private numbers that hang up the moment you answer. Imagine the paranoia of not knowing if you're crazy or if you're being hunted. For King Vaughn's sister, this wasn't imagination. This was her reality. She had always been outspoken, fiery, and fearless. That was Vaughn's blood running through her veins. But after the threats? After the leaks, the whispers, the so-called warnings, even she admitted the weight was crushing. In one live stream, her voice cracked as she said, "Sometimes I wonder if telling the truth was even worth it. I lost my brother. I don't want to lose my life too." The internet, of course, ate it up. Comments flooded in, some sympathetic, some mocking, some straight up daring her to keep talking. Because that's what the internet does best. Treat real fear like it's a reality show. And yet, silence was never an option. The more they pushed her into hiding, the louder she wanted to scream. That's when the revenge narrative started brewing. Friends close to her hinted that she wasn't just scared, she was angry. Furious, even. Furious enough to start digging into Vaughn's circle herself, to start exposing things nobody thought she'd dare touch. Alleged screenshots began surfacing of her conversations with people tied to the night of Vaughn's death. She wasn't asking polite questions either. She was demanding answers, firing off messages like, "Y'all think I don't know the truth? I got receipts. I'm not scared." Now, was this bravery? Or was it desperation? Because let's be real, when you poke the bear, you better be ready for claws. And soon enough, the claws came out. Rumors flew that people connected to Lil Durk's camp were meeting behind closed doors, discussing how to handle her. Some said it was just talk. Others said plans were in motion. One blog even claimed an alleged recording existed of a heated phone call where someone close to the case muttered, "She talking too much. Somebody better shut her up." The authenticity of the recording? Who knows? But the internet didn't care. They ran with it. Memes, hashtags, conspiracies. Vaughn's sister wasn't just a grieving sibling anymore. She was a ticking time bomb in the center of a rap empire's darkest scandal. The paranoia grew heavier. She stopped going out at night. She kept her circle tighter than ever. But with every passing day, her fear morphed into defiance. Because if Vaughn's story really was about silencing the truth, then maybe her survival was about blasting the truth louder than anyone could cover up. And that's where the plot takes an almost cinematic twist. Word spread that she was planning to release her own tell-all, a raw exposé spilling every detail she knew, every name she suspected, every piece of evidence she hinted existed but never revealed. Fans speculated it could be a book, a documentary, or maybe even a leaked sit-down interview with an underground channel that wasn't scared of lawsuits or death threats. Imagine the chaos if that dropped. Imagine the headlines if she went on record accusing names too powerful to ignore. It wouldn't just be drama. It would be war. But here's the cruel reality. Vaughn's murder wasn't just about Vaughn. It was about control. And people who thrive on control don't just sit back and let you destroy everything they've built. Which is why, right before whispers of her exposé started gaining traction, another wave of threats hit harder than ever. This time, they weren't vague. They weren't cryptic. They were blunt. Drop it and die. And now, the world waits. Because what comes next could either blow the lid off the entire murder plot or bury the last living truth-teller once and for all. Vaughn's sister stands at the edge of a cliff. One step forward means exposure, one step back means silence. But both directions could lead to the same fate. The aftermath of all this is ugly. Fans split down the middle. Some hail her as a hero, the only one with guts to call out the snakes. Others drag her as an opportunist, chasing fame off her brother's name. But isn't that the same script every whistleblower gets? They call you crazy until your words come true. They call you a liar until the receipts drop. And then, when it's too late, they call you a legend. Meanwhile, Lil Durk's name won't leave the conversation. Locked in a cell, yet somehow louder than ever, his shadow looms over every headline. Is his family really behind the threats? Is his camp orchestrating the silencing? Or is someone else using his name as the perfect cover to carry out their own agenda? That's the million-dollar question nobody can answer, yet. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Because in the end, it doesn't matter who's pulling the strings. What matters is that Vaughn's sister is the last piece of the puzzle, the last domino standing before the entire story collapses. If she falls, so does the truth. And if she survives long enough to spill everything, then the empire built on Vaughn's silence could crumble overnight. But let's not pretend this ends with a neat bow. No, this is hip-hop. This is street politics. This is life and death disguised as gossip. And right now, the stage is set for one of the most dangerous finales the culture has ever seen. So here's the cliffhanger nobody wants to admit. What if the same people who silenced Vaughn are planning the encore? What if the sisters' warning wasn't just about fear, but prophecy? What if the real headline waiting to drop isn't about Vaughn's murder at all, but hers? Because until that truth comes out, one thing is certain: the story of King Vaughn's murder isn't over. It's just getting started. And there you have it. From King Vaughn's tragic murder, to his sister's courtroom breakdown, to the chilling death threats that followed her every move, this isn't just rap drama anymore. This is a real-life horror script playing out in front of millions. A brother gunned down in cold blood. A sister silenced with fear. A family trapped in a cycle of betrayal, paranoia, and survival. But the real question now isn't who killed Vaughn. We've been asking that since day one. The question now is, will the truth ever see the light of day before someone else gets buried in the shadows? Vaughn's sister said it herself. She warned him. He didn't listen. And now she's the one carrying the weight of his legacy, while living under the same threat that ended his life. That's not gossip. That's a death sentence waiting to be written. So what do you think? Are these threats just noise from trolls? Or is there really a darker machine at work pulling strings to bury this entire story? Do you believe Vaughn's sister should risk everything and drop the exposé she's rumored to be working on? Or should she protect herself before she becomes another name we hashtag and forget about once the next scandal hits? One thing's for sure, the snakes are still moving, and the game isn't over. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think is really behind all this? And while you're here, hit that like button, subscribe to Spillover, and turn on notifications, because trust me, the next twist in this story is coming, and you'll want to hear it here first. Because in the world of hip-hop, the truth doesn't just set you free. Sometimes it gets you killed.